first day of the business forum, BRICS Business Forum here in Rio de Janeiro. Many discussions have started already. Earlier this morning, we saw the president of the Development Bank engaging member states. As you know, that this is her second term. As a Brazilian, former president of Brazil, who understand very well the needs of developing countries and also of poorer countries. But I'm going to be in conversation with South African business now to look at the expectations in terms of the South African delegation. Thank you so much for your time. Quite an important gathering here, and Puti Dabengwa represents NASPERS. But generally, in terms of South African interest, as big business, what are your expectations in terms of this summit?
Thank you very much. So this summit is very important, and particularly when you look at the state of the world as we see it today. Looking at the importance of the Global South is a critical moment for us to be doing so, because as we see all of these difficulties that we see around the world, it's important that we're looking at how we are dealing with issues of sustainability, issues of poverty, all of these challenges, how we are dealing with them. And so when we look at the broader BRICS that's been formed, it now speaks to the ability of us being able to all work together to ensure that the Global South is in a much stronger position to be able to deal with all of the challenges that we face. This morning, we just came back from a meeting that was held with the National Development Bank, which is the bank of the BRICS. And so it is important in looking at how all of these nations are being funded at a time such as this. There are a number of challenges being faced by all of the nations who form part of BRICS. And so the issue is for us to be able to do that together. And for us as a BRICS Business Council coming from South Africa, it's an important time for us to be able to support Brazil as they are, presenting this wonderful conference where all of us are meeting and putting our thoughts together on what we need to do as we look at the way forward.
You correctly pointed out that this meeting comes at very challenging times, particularly when you look at a country like the United States of America that has decided to change the global trade, the system. Do you think with the challenges countries facing of tariffs and all of that, this is something that BRICS can really engage on?
Well, I think that the world is constantly changing. Whether you're looking at evolution in one particular nation or around the world, things are consistently changing. What's important is for us as nations in the Global South to continue to look at how we can deal with matters that are of importance to us. Ensuring that our young populations have access to education, ensuring that people have access to all of the areas that they need help with in terms of dealing with poverty, dealing with unemployment, all of those issues. And so irrespective of policies and leadership that we may see from different nations around the world, of the developed nations, we need to make sure that we stay focused on the things that are important to us as a Global South. And so this meeting that we had this morning at the NDB was of critical importance in looking at ways in which we can deal with some of these critical issues. And also, I think as us, looking at us as BRICS nations, looking at how we are engaging together and making sure that we are able to address all of these issues. Because from time to time, despite what president you may have of what particular nation, there will always be issues that arise, and they are able to impose those issues within those periods of time in which they reign. But nations continue in spite of who is leading what nation. And so as leaders in our particular nations and as business, our focus is on ensuring that a Brazil, a South Africa, and all the other nations within BRICS are able to ensure that the Global South is able to grow and able to contribute to the net worth of the world as we move forward.
And the last question, a build up towards G20, quite important.
Yes. So we are very proud as South Africa to be part and to be hosting the G20 this year in November. And as someone who is one of the chairs in the B20, I'm particularly proud of the work that we are doing in the B20 in ensuring that we're engaging with all of the G20 nations to be able to move the whole of the continent forward. The South Africa has really differentiated itself. It's differentiated the G20 by ensuring that we're not only speaking on behalf of South Africa, but we're actually speaking on behalf of Africa. And so that is something that is of importance, ensuring again that even as members of the G20, that we are focusing on global South issues. And so as we hand over to the US in November with respect to the G20, we'll at least be able to ensure that issues of development have been taken into consideration in looking at issues of the G20.
Thank you so much for your time. I guess there are many people here, and I just want to continue. I just want to grab Dr. Stavros. Dr. Stavros, the BRICS meeting comes at an important time, but when we look at health matters, this is something that countries must pay attention to. We saw what happened during the COVID-19, where we had challenges in terms of vaccine supply and access. As a pharmaceutical company, what's your view in terms of countries also having that kind of capacity within their group?
Sophie, firstly, thanks very much for having me, and good afternoon to all the viewers. We've just come back from the BRICS New Development Bank AGM, and the theme for this BRICS summit is very much aligned to our G20 summit, which speaks a lot about equity and solidarity and sustainability. And one of those areas that is enjoying a special focus here in Brazil is healthcare, because unless you have equitable health, unless you have health security, then economies, lives and livelihoods are lost. And I'm pleased that this is one of the key themes at this BRICS 2025 summit. What needs to happen? There needs to be further commitment to building domestic and regional manufacturing supply chains. We saw what happened during COVID, where developing countries, the least developed, and even our own country, South Africa and the African continent, were left in the lurch. They were at the back end of the queue, and unnecessary lives and livelihoods were lost. So we're particularly pleased that it is one of the core focus areas here in Brazil, and we look forward to engaging more on that. If we are to give true credence to the theme of sustainability, equity, and solidarity, then health should be at the forefront of that. You cannot have this vast health inequity that we have seen around the world for so many years.
Sustainability speaks to research as well. We saw the United States of America taking a decision not to continue supporting some research work in health sector. How has that affected the health sector, particularly issues that are related to vaccine manufacturing, not only in South Africa, but particularly in Sub-Sahara?
Sophie, that's an excellent question. And the funding that South Africa receives from the United States, from USAID, PEPFAR and the NRC amounts to almost 10 billion rand. So it's a 10 billion gap that we need to fill. Approximately 2 billion of that is attributable to research, clinical trial capacity. The other 8 billion odd was to assist HIV and TB programs on the ground. Obviously this funding has dried up now. We're not sure if it will be revived, either in part or in whole or not at all. So we do need to find our own solutions. And part of finding our own solutions, so you don't have this dependency on other countries, the United States or any other donor for that matter, is if you have your own industry, your own capability to manufacture products, medical countermeasures as we call them, which includes pharmaceuticals, HIV drugs, vaccines, medical devices. If you have that capacity, then you are creating and growing your own economies. You create taxes for the country. If you've got your own taxes, you don't depend on outside donors. You're not left in the lurch as is presently the case. So this issue of regional manufacturing, whether it's vaccines, medical countermeasures or medtech products, is crucial. It is key to how we move forward in achieving health security on the African continent.
And finally, how do you link the outcomes of this summit with the G20 agenda, with South Africa expected to host this massive gathering in towards end of the year?
Look, it's fortuitous that Brazil is hosting BRICS 2025. We've just come out of the BRICS Bank, the New Development Bank meeting. President Lula delivered the keynote address, and it was very interesting to listen to him because he might as well have been speaking at the G20. That's how closely aligned the agendas are. The theme for Brazil 25 is almost identical to that of G20 that South Africa is pursuing. So there's a very strong alignment, and it's a lot to do about how do we strengthen South-South collaboration, how do we integrate the African continent. President Lula spoke significantly about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, about integrating the African continent, that the African Union is now a G20 member in its own right. He spoke about all of these elements. So you can see there's a very close alignment. But I do think what we need to do, and perhaps we can engage after the BRICS Business Council meeting and the forum tomorrow, what we do need to do that is we need to convert some of the political goodwill into deal making, into renewed and slightly different trade patterns. The trade patterns are a bit imbalanced at the moment, and this will be an ongoing focus, certainly for us as a South African chapter of the BRICS Business Council. We do need to start exporting more finished products, manufactured products out of the country into our BRICS partner countries and the world at large.